around the world. We are live from our global headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Kelly Egiga. We are live in Kyiv in just a moment, but there's been a lot of warnings this week. But this time, it's coming from Russian President, Mr. Vladimir Putin, who says South Korea would be making a big mistake if it arms Ukraine in the war against his country. His warning comes after South Korea said it was considering such a possibility in response to Russia and North Korea's new pact to help each other in the event of aggression against either country. Now, speaking to reporters during a visit to Vietnam, Mr. Putin says, in his words, open quote, Moscow will make decisions which are unlikely to please the current leadership of South Korea if it decides to supply arms to Kyiv, end quote. Mr. Putin also is warning that Moscow is willing to arm North Korea if the United States and its allies continue supplying Ukraine with weapons. And earlier, South Korea did condemn the treaty by Russia and North Korea, calling it a threat to its national security. South Korea Foreign Minister Choi Tae-yul, who voiced concerns over the security agreement, called on the international community to condemn any of such actions between both countries that can undermine peace and security. The country also summoned the Russian ambassador, Georgy Zinoviev, to protest the pact, demanding that Moscow immediately ceases military cooperation with Pyongyang.
Official statement of my government was announced a couple of hours ago by our National Security Advisor in Seoul. I want you to refer to the statement for the details. But I just add my own voice of concern over the situation, and I would like to emphasize once again that any direct or indirect assistance or cooperation that enhances North Korea's military capability is a clear violation of the multiple UN Security Council resolutions. And it is indeed deplorable that a permanent member of the Security Council, which had agreed to the adoption of these resolutions, is now acting in violation of the resolutions and by signing this agreement. So the international community must stand united in condemning and countering any illicit activities that may undermine the international peace and security, and the government of the Republic of Korea will respond to whatever actions that may threaten our national security resolutely and decisively.
And staying with that story, we have more reactions now, this time from Japan, where authorities in that country are seriously concerned about the recent cooperation between Russia and North Korea. According to the country's Chief Cabinet Secretary, Yoshimasa Hayashi, the treaty signed by Mr. Putin and his counterpart, Mr. Kim Jong-un, violates relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions. He also says Moscow procured arms and ammunition, including ballistic missiles, from North Korea and used them in Ukraine in clear violations of the resolutions. Japan is therefore urging the international community as a whole to call for the abandonment of North Korea's nuclear ballistic missile program. In the meantime, the United States says it is not surprised by the closer ties between Russia and North Korea. Now, speaking at a news conference in Arlington, Pentagon spokesperson Major General Pat Ryder reiterates that Washington would closely monitor developments and outcomes of the meeting between both presidents.
It's obviously something that we're continuing to monitor very closely. As you've heard others in the U.S. government talk about, there is no surprise here that they've been developing and fostering this relationship. So it is something that we're going to take seriously, and it's something that we're going to continue to monitor. But what we've also said is that our focus when it comes to the Indo-Pacific region, and broadly speaking worldwide, is to work with like-minded nations on security and stability throughout the world, to include the Indo-Pacific region. So we're going to continue to strengthen and bolster those alliances and those relationships with the idea that our focus is on peace, security, and stability, but certainly are also going to continue to keep a close eye on this. I don't have any details, nor am I going to discuss in detail any agreements between Russia and the DPRK at this point. Again, I'd go back to what I said earlier. We're not surprised about this continuing burgeoning of this relationship. It's something that we're going to monitor closely. And again, what you have seen in the past is the DPRK providing Russia with munitions that are being employed in Ukraine, killing Ukrainians and supporting Russia's illegal war. So again, definitely concerning for all those nations that respect sovereignty, respect the rule of law.
Well, and for more on our lead story, VOA correspondent Anna Sherinikova joins us live from Kyiv in Ukraine. Anna, it's always great to see you again. Look, let's kickstart our conversation on this developing story with the comments by the Pentagon spokesperson just a moment ago, Major General Pat Ryder. Well, he says the U.S. would continue to monitor closely details of the meetings between Russian President Mr. Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. Just how concerned are officials in Ukraine about this development?
Good evening. Well, I should say that in Ukraine, such step by President Putin was not a surprise. The talks about Russian and North Korean cooperation, are going on for quite a long time, and also Ukraine has already recorded and has after examining some of the missiles used by Russia on the territory of Ukraine, there is understanding that North Korean weapons are used in Ukraine, and so basically for Ukraine, Ukrainian position is that it's not surprisingly that President Putin continues to deepen these relations, because, well, definitely we can see that most of Europe, most of the countries around the globe are supporting Ukraine in this war, and of course President Putin would look for additional allies, and such ally as North Korea, who can provide weapons, who can provide all the support Russia would require and ask for, is definitely something that would be interested for Russia. So but again, it's not only concern for Ukraine, it's concern for the whole world, and I think that here in Ukraine there is understanding that it now goes beyond Russia-Ukraine war and Russia-Ukraine battle, because bringing North Korea to such a stage in such war is definitely something that should be a concern for the rest of the world as well.
I mean, Anna, I totally agree with you, but I also imagine President Volodymyr Zelensky's countenance to Mr. Putin's very recent trips to North Korea and Vietnam. I mean, but speaking about the concern for global leaders, the U.S. and other allies, they have accused North Korea of aiding Russia with weapons, which we understand were being used or are being used in Ukraine. Both countries have denied these claims. Is any of this true at all?
Well, as I mentioned before, it was examined. So certain weapons were examined after the attacks. Particularly, we're talking about attacks on Kyiv. There were missiles after the examination, after the evaluation, and a number of things ongoing in terms of to identify what particularly the weapon is and what particularly the missile is. It was confirmed not only by Ukrainian officials and responsible people, but also by the international experts that this was the weapon from the North Korea. So we do have confirmations from officials here in Ukraine, both here in Ukraine and abroad, and there is a fact that Russia is using North Korean missiles, particularly here in Ukraine. We don't have particular confirmation of any more or other type of weapons, but again, I think that probably missiles would be the priority for Russia at this point. There are enough confirmations, and I can say that at least 3 big cities in Ukraine were under attack by North Korean weapons, including the city of Kyiv. And the city of Kyiv was one of the first cities to be attacked by North Korean weapons, but air defense managed to destroy those. But still, the debris examination just confirmed the use of this weapon. So, and it looks like the deepening of the relations between Russia and North Korea, well, gives certain understanding that probably those missiles will be seen more often now on the territory of Ukraine. And again, as I said, well, this is a concern not just for Ukraine.
I'm a bit concerned about the residents in Ukraine, and I mean, because President Putin has also warned South Korea it would be making a big mistake if it arms Ukraine with weapons. How are residents reacting to this, to this crucial development? I mean, because it's a crucial time of war for the nation.
You know, I think that, well, of course, the rhetorics by Russian president and by Russia in general will be this way. And we can see that South Korea, who announced that it might also, you know, be joining the supply of certain weapons, particularly the air defense, was under the discussion. I think that such visits by President Putin to North Korea and such tweets which are signing the security agreements that were signed probably will work other way around and will maybe make South Korea to actually take this decision and start the supply of weapons, despite what President Putin is saying, because we all understand that the rhetoric is one thing, but also we should consider a national security of the countries. And for South Korea, supplying Ukraine with weapons would be also a part of their national security strategy, considering the actions of North Korea. So we should not only here concentrate on Russia-Ukraine war, because, as I said, it now goes a little beyond, especially for South Korea at this point. So here in Ukraine, there is understanding that it might be that this visit by President Putin to North Korea and this agreement that was signed will actually encourage South Korea to help Ukraine and to start maybe helping even more.
Anna, it's really beautiful, the background where you are now, but I mean, it doesn't appear like a nation which is at war. I mean, the sky is really lovely and beautiful to see, but I wonder if there has been any surprise attacks by Russian forces on cities in Ukraine, especially while Mr. Vladimir Putin is abroad.
I cannot say that it was something special or something different from any other day here in Ukraine. Russian attacks continue, mainly targeting energy infrastructure, and at this point, situation with electricity across Ukraine is extremely difficult, is really close to critical. But I cannot say that it was something special during President Putin's visit to North Korea. It looks like that Russia just continued to follow the plans that they have, and visits by President Putin at this point, at least, did not create any additional, background for the attacks or for change of the aggression that is happening every day for more than 2 years now.
All right, let me take you back to these renewed pacts and friendship between Mr. Putin and Kim Jong-un. The welcome hug on the tarmac somewhere around 3 a.m., the honor guard of mounted soldiers, the huge portraits of both leaders, Mr. Kim Jong-un and Mr. Vladimir Putin, hanging side by side in the center of Pyongyang. All of this, perhaps critics say, was possibly designed to worry the West. What do you think?
For sure. I think that this is something to demonstrate to the rest of the world that Russia doesn't need to cooperate with Europe, with US, with any other country at any other continent, but because Russia has support from those countries that Russia needs. But again, we see the picture, we see what Russia wants us to see. other understanding, and if we analyze, and this is how experts see this, and here in Ukraine, for instance, it's seen that, well, Russia has no choice now, and President Putin has to go to North Korea personally to talk with the leader of North Korea personally. This happens for the first time in more than 2 decades. And probably this is not something that Russia would be proud of, but publicly, of course, Russia will demonstrate that this is a great step forward. But again, understanding here in Ukraine and Ukrainian allies, well, more or less has similar views on that, well, Putin has now to look for support from North Korea because there are no other options, or there are other options, but again, they are limited. So, well, this is considered this way, and of course we should also divide what Russia wants us to see and how Russia wants to present the Russian narrative from what really is happening in terms of on the international stage and in terms of international diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a fine place to anchor our conversation, Anna, because, I mean, we also understand that one man who is friends with both Putin and Kim Jong-un is the president of China, President Xi Jinping, but he doesn't seem too pleased with this development and this new friendship between Mr. Putin and Kim Jong-un. And we understand why, and so because of the international markets, for our viewers who understand how things play out in the international markets. We'll monitor and see how events unfold in the coming days, but we must thank you most kindly for bringing us up to speed. Anna Shcherenikova, live for us in Kiev, Ukraine. Thank you indeed. And as always, great to see you again.
Thank you.